Welcome to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I'm Lisa Watson and we'll be joined by my co-hosts Nicole Frolick and Brian Koenigberg. The enLIGHTenUP podcast is a weekly show that provides an unconventional and refreshing spin on spirituality, where three friends and weekly guests share informative, fun, and usually off-the-wall conversations. Unlike others, we provide fringe and skeptical viewpoints on all topics, because our experience has taught us that the echo chamber is a boring place from which to learn. So regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, we can promise you're going to find a place to fit in here. So we invite you to grab a drink and listen in on our casual, entertaining, and hopefully enlightening conversation. And enLIGHTenUP is a self-funded podcast, so if you would like to help us to continue to be able to produce, enhance, and expand the show for our audience, then please send your support using the link in the show notes, or go to our website, enlightenup.us, and check out our merchandise shop, where you can purchase merchandise that will allow you to express some spiritual humor. You may also show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes and following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting us, and now let's jump right into the episode.
Welcome back to the enLIGHTenUP podcast, everyone. I am here with your co-hosts Brian and Lisa, and today we are excited to open the year up with a very interesting and much younger guest. Garin Zina, at just 17, is an influential spiritual teacher. He has studied metaphysics since the age of 5 and has been devoted to raising the awareness of all the people that he meets. He has tested and proved the law of attraction, and through his own YouTube channel, Garin the Hierophant, he teaches both young and old seekers how to create lasting changes in life. Garin, welcome back to the podcast. Last time we had you on, we were on the Waves of Light cruise.
Thank you for having me. Oh, it's been a very interesting year, to say the least.
Yeah, well, it's about a few days in. So
I mean, year in between, not the new year. We have a lot to go into 2020.
Yeah, we do, but it has definitely been a long year since we last saw you, and I think all three of us were really impressed with a lot of the information you had to share in the group, because you were 16 at the time, correct?
That is correct, and I'm turning 18 March 4th, so I'm on the precipice of another great change. But thank you for
Legally an adult.
legal. Dangerous word, but yeah, last time I spoke with y'all, you had asked me questions about the law of attraction. You had asked me questions about just my views on the world, and it was a nice conversation. It was, I believe, about 5-10 minutes long. I think we have a little longer now, so
We do. You are the man in the hot seat today, so you get to share everything. I don't think we really got to go into your past. Like, you mean you started studying this at the age of 5?
So I was born on Kauai, the Garden Island of Hawaii. More of a not as spiritual as Maui, but more. There was a lot of hippies there, let's just say. And around when I was 4 or 5, my mom started waking up. She found Esther Hicks's material, Abraham's material, and she started reading to me the Seth and Sarah books, which were written by Abraham. And I had a big interest in all that sort of stuff, and I very much believed that the impossible was possible. And around the age of 5, my mom and a friend had gone to a yoga class with a little bit of a lecture about chakras at the end, and she wanted me to listen into the lecture. And I learned about chakras at that age, and they made sense to me. It made complete sense to me for some reason. So I had,
At the age of 5.
yes, and I had become very, very, very obsessed with that at that age, and I was obsessed with hypnotism as well. And at a certain point, I fell off of that path because I had to become a normal person and not just 100% be devoted to the seeking. And so I guess I was socialized for a little bit. And then when I was 8, I moved to Ecuador. My parents moved there to help my grandparents remodel a house. And we ended up staying there for 4.5 years. At the age of 11, I had my second awakening, which was when Well, actually, before then, my dad channels. So he channels Archangel Michael, and he would channel him when I lived in Hawaii, and he was a trance channel, and he would do his thing and go unconscious and then start speaking. And at first, I thought it was a little bit weird to think that there's some invisible entity speaking through my dad, giving us universal knowledge and kind of guiding our lives. But after a while, I got used to it, and that continued and reemerged at the age of 11 a lot. And I made the realization that if I were to solely focus on that how I wanted to, which would just to be to completely devote myself to spirituality and just seeking of that knowledge at that age, I'd completely isolate myself, and I didn't want to do that. So I kind of dropped it, and I knew I'd eventually get back to it. And when I was 15, I dove back in.
Well, that's a lot of awareness to have at the age of 11. I mean, to really understand the flux of socialism, like not socialism, but so like society and how everyone's socialized, is pretty deep at the age of 11. I mean, you don't even most 11-year-olds don't even most 20 something, 30 something year olds don't even know who they are, much less have that much awareness. At least
Brian's just now figuring it out.
Yeah, there's always the time. Everybody's journey is now.
Wow. So your second awakening was at 11. What kind of, if you were to pinpoint something at that time, what was it exactly? Was it the channeling or was it something else?
Since I was about 6 years old, I'd always known that the law of attraction existed and that my thoughts affected my experience of things and that my emotions were powerful, to say the least. And when when I was about 11, I wanted to pinpoint a specific event. So I was homeschooled when in Hawaii, and I only ever went to 333, perfect timing. I only ever went to kindergarten, and then I was taken out and homeschooled, and I got back into school in 6th grade in Ecuador, and then it was. I don't recall the specific event. It was more so that I was already awoken, and I had decided to get back into that type of information, and it was like a lot of revelations that started coming to me because I had a computer in my room and I wasn't the most social of kids. So I just do a lot of research on many different things. And I knew that the world isn't as it seems. And then my parents had continued doing more and more channelings, and even the decision to move back to Florida where I live now, channeled, business decisions channeled, everything through the higher consciousness. And it just gave me the awareness that there was more to this plane of existence, I guess.
I'm curious. What were you researching at 11?
Well, it was kind of negative at first because when I started my research, it started when I was 7. That's where my world. Um,
Yeah,
I started my
mind blowing right
researching.
now. I think you're mind blowing all of our audience members.
I started researching the atrocities of humanity at 7. So I instantly knew that for a while I had believed that humans were parasites, and I did not like that. And it was very disempowering, and it made me feel helpless. Like there was nothing I could do but to watch everybody just throw everything down the drain. But I didn't want to believe that. So I searched for good instead of the um, massacres, and it made a very, very vivid painting of duality in my mind, where I saw that humans on one end were like a master species above all other animals, but there's a very large gap between us and anything else. We're way too cognizant, we're way too knowing, we're way too intuitive, we're way too curious. We're the thing that questions why. We're the thing that can actually question. And then on the other hand was the terrible, just not healthy species that was present there in the past. And I I knew that I wanted to, in a sense, embody that higher principle and not fall down the lower path, because with that awareness you understand that anybody and everything and everybody has good and bad in them. So it's
Mhm.
with great power comes great responsibility, essentially.
Very true. So, with that idea of having so much awareness, what are your thoughts on the idea that intuition is evolution?
Mm. So every single thing around us, the walls, the floor, the computers we're speaking from, the or on or through, the clothes we're wearing, at some point was designed in the mind or flowed through the mind of a man or a woman. So the imagination is our link to other worlds, other dimensions, other realities, whatever you want to call it. It's our link to the unmanifest, the thing that is not here. The way that we pull information through that is through our intuition. It's our intuition essentially is us getting direct information into our mind via either thoughts, feelings, sensing, nudges, blocks of information, in as many ways as you can think of. So, in every single thing that was ever created by the human first came through their intuition. Intuition isn't only mental, intuition is action based as well. Intuition is the random thought that you get to go down to the corner store at the time that you decide to go, and then out of random probability you meet a person that becomes your lifelong friend. If you didn't listen to that intuition, that nudge, it wouldn't have happened.
I was listening to a YouTube video. I've listened to it about 5 times now under the guidance of one of my mentors. And it was on this idea of that your intuition is also, in a way, coming through you in action. And this idea that your body can, in a way, be controlled where you make a movement that you don't even think about, you don't even know you're doing it, but it just happened. So, for instance, you may have averted danger without even realizing that you were
That's
in
happened to me
danger.
many times.
Okay. You want to
So,
give us
a
an
gr-
instance when that happened?
I have two examples. One where it was involving me, and another where it was involving my friend. So the first with me, I was, ah, so I was, we were playing soccer inside. Bad idea, first of all. And I was about to go around the corner because I had to go to the bathroom or something like that. And then my head turned before my body turned to go around the corner, and I didn't know why. And then a second later, the soccer ball hits me in the back of the head. And I didn't choose to move my head. My body knew before the event happened. And I've read in many different places. I'm not 100% certain if there's been scientific research on this, but the body reacts seconds before the action or event happens. So the second example is when my friend was crossing the street. He had had an ear infection, and I knew that something. Whenever there's something weird going on, I feel like the air leaves the room in a way. It's very strange. I'll get into that in a little bit, but I had felt that there was something weird. And he had an ear infection, so he couldn't hear. And he starts to cross the road, and I don't realize that I'm reaching for him. I don't realize that my arm is literally wrapping around him, and then I don't realize that I pretty much grab him and do a backwards roll onto the concrete. And I don't realize until I pretty much am on top of him and looking down at him. And I saved his life because he didn't hear a car coming around the corner. And the car was going like 60, 70 miles an hour around a corner, and he was about to get hit. I didn't even realize that I saved him until I looked and see the car driving past. But it's crazy.
Yeah, Ingo Swann talks about this and he talks about how our brain, we receive these intuitive messages through the crown chakra, and that's where the motor cortex is and the premotor cortex in front of it, and how that without that, our body can't act. And so it sends messages, not necessarily from our belief system that we think it, as a more of like you've received the information and it goes through the motor cortex into the body and the body reacts before you even know why.
Right, and that's why it's a reaction.
Mhm.
And it happens, with split second timing because you as quickly as the brain processes things, it probably can't process them that quickly.
It's not even split second timing at this point. It's quantum. Everything already exists. Thus, it's in a way pre-written. It's predestined. It's not that your body is reacting to a a foreseeable event. It's more so that it's one of the many foreseeable events that it is already reacting to. And since you have that higher self connection, and the higher self to me is just your subconscious mind. It's infinitely more powerful than the conscious mind. It literally knows and sees and feels every single small detail of every single experience you're in before you're even there. So it's, yeah, split second, we could say.
So this idea of intuition, you feel like this is what is evolving our humanity?
I think that every single thought that any of us have, so thinking or analyzing or logic, those are all very synonymous in a way. So it's reason, you're contemplating, you're thinking. With intuition, you're giving up the need to critical think about it. You simply are given the information, and then you either have the choice to trust the information and go forward with it, or throw it away and lose the opportunity. So the people that were brave in history that thought, "Hey, I have this new idea. I'm going to make a phone that's the size of your hand. That's going to be pretty much a computer eventually." Nobody believed that that was going to be possible 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever it was. And the people, the pioneers that chose to do what everybody thought was impossible and listen to their gut feeling, listen to their gut urge, whatever it was, those were the people that changed the world. Nikola Tesla, he created the light bulb and all the and many other things within his dreams. He before it was cemented in physical beingness or physical reality, he literally created it within a lucid dream and tested that that was a viable option. So intuition is a lot bigger than just the downloading of information. Intuition is, in a sense, every different thought and different emotional reaction and different response that we give to the situation, depending upon what frequency we're tuned in on. We're tuned in at. And people get confused with frequency a lot because they think we're just talking about vibrations, or I'm talking about what channel you're tied into. So if you're connected to, let's just say, positive emotions, let's just say inspiration, you have a whole different set of specifics going on in your mind, your emotional state, your body. It's all very different than when you're connected into despair. When you're connected into inspiration, it's as if the foundation of your being is changed essentially, and you have so much more information coming to you. You have so much more. It's intuition is not simply information. Intuition is it's a way of being at this point for me. It's very difficult for me to explain. I have a lot of different ideas going on in my head right now.
No, I mean, I understand that, like, and this idea too, like speaking to that idea of, what you receive versus what you think. So your intuition is kind of the way you receive information versus your mind and how you think things through, like you said, critically think, use logical thinking, all which are very important things to have. They're important to have at this time. I think it's lacking in quite a few people in our society, but it's important to have that. When I think it makes me think about this, just this morning, I had a client and I was coaching her, and she's given up cigarettes for the new year. And I asked her, I said, okay, knowing that this idea of New Year's resolutions and all that, and how hard sometimes it can be to stay in on track with a New Year's resolution, I asked her, what does smoking represent to you? And before I could even get the words out of my mouth, the word death just dropped into my mind. And she proceeds to tell me, she goes, well, I didn't start smoking until my first husband passed away. Huh. And so, and so she had continued to smoke for a bit, and then she finally stopped, and then she remarried. And unfortunately, her second husband passed away. And that's when she got really back into smoking. And so I, just through that idea, I realized, someone think, oh, death, it's going to kill you. Like cigarettes, yeah, they're not good for you. They're going to kill you. But that wasn't it. It was that she literally was, without even knowing it, the smoking represented death, and she was wanting to choose life for herself. And so bringing that into awareness for her so that she can get past that subconscious programming of the smoking and realizing what it actually means to her, like giving it a metaphor, she was able to, like, it really hit home for her when she realized, oh my God, that's like sending chills through my body. And realizing that every time if she goes to pick up a cigarette or she wants to smoke, she can relate it back to the idea of like, no, I'm choosing my life. I'm not choosing death anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea of how we receive information, yeah, you can't think that stuff in, it just drops in.
Exactly. I'm actually writing a book called Intuition is Evolution. That's why I wrote it as one of the topics.
Oh, wow. You're writing a book at 17?
I was like,
I can't imagine what you're going to be like in
my
like
only
10 years.
response is just laughing. I mean, not at you. It's just disbelief.
I completely understand it. That's how I feel when I look at the mirror. I'm like, God damn, man. Look, 2 years ago, you're not. I could never foresee this.
You just say, I'm so awesome, right?
I'm so thankful, man. But if you guys want, can I read the preface?
Oh, please do.
It says, "Do not see my words as another self-proclaimed self-help book with quick fixes and ways to tell you to think. This is merely a fragment of my perspective on life. Take as you wish and leave as you please. Any person of any background in any walk of life at any age can temporarily see through my eyes and gain value from these words. Life. Life is the greatest of all arts in existence. Really spend some time looking around. Any piece of art pales next to the beauty of life slash existence in whole itself. A fresh canvas piece for each human to paint on that which they wish, with the perspectives as their paint. Perspective is the very best of paints, allowing us to hold on to any burden, capture any pain, and repaint these experiences in endless cycles of agony or joy. It can bring a sun to a gloomy day, discipline for goals, or even ideals on how to be. Perspective is our guideline, our foundation, and most importantly, our friend. It is here to help us paint the life that we wish to paint. As we wade through the emotions of life, top the mountains, and plunge the drops, we feel a full range of feelings. Not so enjoyable times are nasty, enjoyable times are joyous and blissful. The greatest gift I can give you is the gift of creative integrity. First, we must understand the truth about truth. The nature of truth is that truth is subjective. No one person's truth about life is exact to another's. Each truth is unique to the individual. Unique and individual. Thus we can form the knowing and understanding that all truths are true from the perspective of the individual believing in that truth. Yet all truths are false as well, because they are not absolute. They have to be opposites, because they are chosen perspectives. Yada, 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 yada. That's essentially the first part of it.
Wow.
We're
Yeah.
all speechless.
I love it. I'm totally loving this. And you give me a lot of hope to bring children into this world. It's nice to see and hear from the younger generation speaking so much wisdom.
Well, what's interesting to me is his background, and I think that's what's so unique. If you look at most teachers and people, on their spiritual walk right now, a lot of us, Nicole, Lisa, Joe Dispenza, I'm sure a lot of these names, big and small, didn't have a background where at 5 years old they were, being, read teachings from, Abraham and the person that channeled Abraham. And looking forward to when you have a child, Nicole, that's what you're going to have the opportunity to do because you're grounded and you're already thinking this way. And I think that's so cool.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, Garin, as someone who has grown up with spiritual parents and awakened parents. What is your perspective on how you were raised versus how you see some of your friends who were raised with, say, unawakened parents? And not to say one's better than the other or anything like
Not
that,
at
but
all.
just what's your perspective?
So, there's many different ways to answer this question. So, there is a certain connection that I have with my parents that I've not found in any other of my friends and their relationship to their parents. There's a certain level of transparency that my parents have, and our dynamic is very transparent. They trust me with information that most parents wouldn't really want to talk about with their kids. I back to the main question, which is, what is it like to have spiritual parents? The, the biggest difference I see is that most parents, most people, in fact, everybody at this point, is in some way running from their shadow or being dominated by their shadow, the aspect of their psyche that um, it's like filling holes. Everybody has holes. They're always filling holes, and they don't feel complete with themselves. I believe that with spiritual parenting, you find a way to eliminate the number of holes that the individual has, the number of different traumas that the individual holds within themselves throughout their life. So many of the things that the spiritual child of the spiritual parent will not have to face is much insecurity, lots of thinking that other people's thoughts matter, thinking that people's opinions of them are absolute, many different things. It's more so just I think, a higher level of confidence and connection.
You just took the word right out of my mouth. I was going to say your confidence level is unlike most 17-year-olds I've ever met. When I think back to myself at 17, I certainly wasn't this confident to, speak about topics like this on a podcast. Not that podcasts really existed when I was that age, but there's no way I would have been able to speak. Oh, hell, I couldn't even speak at the age of 35, like comfortably and without stuttering or looking for my words. So
It wasn't always like that.
but it's very interesting because I find that level of confidence in who you are, and like you said before, knowing that the way other people perceive you or think of you isn't as important. Those are very big things that a lot of people suffer from through their own unworthiness and self-acceptance.
They become a slave to it, and they're not allowed to awaken their self. It's
They do become a slave to it. That's a great word.
it's if you look at social media, how it's constructed the minds of the youth is it's given kids the perspective that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not enough, I'm not able to do what that person wants. Look at Mike, he's having the life of his dreams. Oh, look at Cheryl, she's on a boat, whatever, blah blah blah. It's making people look outside instead of inside, and they do not realize that everything they could ever need, everything they could ever want, everything they could ever have is already inside them. Not in an arrogant, not in like a bad way. It's more so that we have all of those things that we admire in other people already within us. It's simply about fostering not creating a way that you can be and become that person. But so you said you weren't always confident enough to speak, or you don't think that you would have been confident enough to speak on a podcast. So I had
Oh,
a
I know I wouldn't have been able to.
so before I've been working as a salesperson for the past year, and I do over the phone sales. And before I got that job, I had a bad experience with a plant medicine, where I became incredibly socially anxious, where I couldn't even sit at a table at school for a group project without feeling like I was just wanting to go in the bathroom and just not have to be in the class. And I thought to myself, what can I do right now to force myself out of this hole of thinking, uh, this downward faucet? And I got a serving job, and I started working at restaurant. and it completely and utterly changed my mind about speaking.
What was it? Was it like just being in the restaurant, or
Being forced to speak to every single person that came into the restaurant and having to talk to all the families and people, it completely shattered the bubble of anxiety.
anxiety?
You faced your fear.
Exactly. I did that. I did that once more recently, where I'm not really too fond of alligators, but there's this lake pretty close to us called Lake Tarpon. Yeah, the 14-foot alligators that get found in the area around us get dumped in there, and I went not wakeboarding on that lake.
Yeah, alligators, not cozy, not cuddly, not something that I would want to swim
Yeah,
with.
I can't see being comfortable around alligators.
Yep, I wasn't either.
So you went wakeboarding on it then?
Yeah, the last two times I did it, I fell off, and I was waiting for my friends to loop back around, and I started thinking, hey, there's alligators in this lake, and I was like, cut that out. I was like, law of attraction, don't do that, buddy. And then the second that I said alligators, I start feeling algae on my arms. I start feeling more plants. I start seeing more darkness in the water. It just started creeping in on me.
Oh man, you're like totally activating one of my biggest fears. I remember being so scared of what I couldn't see in the water.
Me too.
Me too.
Especially Hawaii.
Oh, it's yeah.
I always called it underwater triophobia.
I call it
Triophobia?
fear of rocks. Anything that looks
It
like
was
a rock, I think
just
the fish.
the trees that you can't see under the water.
Oh,
We used to do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of canoeing in Missouri. There's a lot of rivers to canoe on, and there are fallen trees that you can't see, and they can tip a boat. And
gotcha. Well, good on you, Garin. I'm very impressed at how you are able to think your way, logically. I think this is important too. I mean, intuition's great, but it's also important to have that logical mindset of being able to rationalize and get really clear about what's actually happened to you and what hasn't, and talk yourself out of that situation.
Questions are 100% the source of that information.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about the aura and the subconscious mind. I'm curious.
Ah,
What are you're not writing about that too, are you? Or are you?
so it ties in with the intuition. So with the aura, imagine for a moment that you're uh, the base of what you attract into your life. Imagine that your subconscious mind patterns, the way that you've been living, the way that you've been that you've been being, we could just say, throughout your whole life, has set certain standards, certain meanings to situations, certain ways that you experience the world. With your aura, every single thought and every single thing that draws your attention, every single thing that you become aware of, is you're drawn to that thing because of what you're attracting from your aura, which is also attracting from what you're resonating at, which is your like subconscious mind and other things like that. But so the aura, like if anything that you look at, say you're driving down the road and you just look at a random billboard, and out of random possibility, it's a synchronicity. The thing that drew your attention to look was your there's gosh, I'm trying to put non-physical words into physical words, and it's difficult. um so the aura and the subconscious mind. Long story short, if you say I am a very funny person and you have that belief, no matter who or what or where you're around, you will exhibit that within your aura. And if you have the foundational belief that I'm really unlucky, bad things happen to me, because of that, your aura will be an unlucky aura. So you walk next to a person and it gets contagious and they happen to drop their coffee cup and it spills all over your shirt or something like that. And it's like when people say we give off our own energy, it's truly that you're in a sense exuding that vibe, and not tainting other people's vibes with it, but your vibes are mingling. And with the aura, you can, if you say my aura draws me to different information that will allow me to utilize my intuition more. It will allow me to have more clear thought. It will allow me to have more clarity, whatever it is. The thing that your attention will be drawn to, no matter what it is, you just have to have trust, will be of those things. So the aura is kind of like a mechanism. It's the mechanism in which you sense it's the thing that determines what your attention gets drawn to from what you're attracting. It's kind of confusing. I haven't really broken it down and written it down too well, but it's me trying to explain it quickly.
So what's the I mean, in your eyes, what's the difference between the aura and the subconscious mind creating?
So the subconscious mind creating is like it's like the background processing of a computer. The aura is an electromagnetic frequency. Electro being electric, magnetic being emotion. So electro corresponds to your neurons, your electrical activity in your brain, so your thoughts. So the thoughts you think and the emotions you feel, aka magnetism, are combined with a frequency, and that frequency is what you attract around you. So the subconscious mind is kind of it's like the it's like the auto, not autopilot, but it's the autofill pretty much. So you can be doing whatever, and you don't have to really consciously create every single different thing that has been your desire in your life. A lot of it's already just happening for you. The aura is the day-to-day exuding of that energy. The subconscious mind is the guideline for it. And the aura is determined by thoughts and emotions, essentially.
Okay. So if you're trying to shift your reality and you want to shift it out of, say, something that is more negatively based into something that's more positively, say, supportive to what you really want to interact with, what do you think is more important to engage with first, your aura or the subconscious mind?
The subconscious mind has been programmed since the second that you were born. It's been programmed since the first steps you've taken. It's been programmed since right now it's being programmed, and right now it's being channeled by you and me as well. So the the aura isn't necessarily something to be worked with. It's more so something that comes into effect after the subconscious mind has been reprogrammed. So if you have, okay, so let's just say Bob, hypothetical person. Bob has been suffering from terrible shark anxiety because he's really afraid of underwater. That fundamental belief that he has will completely and utterly control what he experiences in water. If he tries to change his aura about it, aka his thoughts and emotions about it, he'll try to, but he'll still have the jitters from it because it'll be a fundamental foundational fear of his. He has to go inside and do the inner work. He has to do the shadow work. He has to go through and not fill the holes, but he has to realize that there is no hole. He's already whole. He work on the subconscious mind first, because it dominates all patterns and all repetitive things, cycles in our lives.
Yeah, it can basically undermine all of your work that you do through your emotional and conscious thinking.
That's the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a conversation with an individual shadow one night. I was hypnotizing them, and then they had, I thought they had fallen asleep, and then they sit up and they look at me, and they have very different look in their eyes. I could tell it wasn't them speaking, and starts speaking to me in a rather malevolent tone, and it was explaining to me how it was perpetuating emotional suffering for the individual, and how it was orchestrating events through his shadow. And it was very strange because I was having a conversation with pretty much the person's dark side, and I had no clue that it was happening, or not, no clue that it was the shadow that was speaking to me at the time. I only realized that after. It was very strange.
So you do hypnotism on people?
Rarely. In the past I haven't really done it as much recently because
When you were 8?
not then. It wasn't then. It was when I was 16. I was my brother is a somnambulistic transport. Do you know what somnambulistic means?
No, I don't.
So there's a level of awareness, or a level of trance that we could be put into. Only certain people can. It's called somnambulist, or a somnambulistic trance. It's where the person is 100% receptive and 100% suggestible, and it's incredibly powerful, dangerous, good, bad. It can be used for many different things. That's where MK Ultra and all that stuff comes into play. But somnambulistic trances. So my brother's a somnambulist. He literally closes his eyes and then gets into a trance, and he doesn't even fall asleep at night. He just goes into lucid dreams. He says, I'm dreaming, I'm dreaming, I'm dreaming, and then merges into a dream. Doesn't even fall asleep. So he was my test subject for
How old is your brother?
6 months older than me.
Okay.
He's an adopted brother. My best friend from Ecuador. My parents adopted him when I was 13, and then he ended up moving out a couple months ago to become an electrician in Omaha. But
That's pretty cool.
thank you.
Sounds pretty divinely orchestrated.
Yeah,
given his.
And then my friend that I met from before then happened to move to Florida 3 months after I moved to Florida, and now my parents are partners with them. We have and they have a business. Lots of crazy different stuff. And even somebody from Hawaii moved to Ecuador before we moved to Ecuador, and then we ended up meeting up with them again. So many crazy different things. My life's like one giant movie of
Synchronicity after
synchronicities.
another, yeah.
But back to the question. I'm sorry. What was the question?
I think I was just amazed that your brother was able to, this idea of lucid dreaming. I mean, we had Ian Wilson on a few months ago talking about lucid dreaming. Do you lucid dream, Garin?
I do. I am not as proficient in the dreaming arts as I'd like to be. I've spent many, 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 many hours devoted to astral projection and different things, trying to figure out how to leave my body. But I've done it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I've lucid dreamed probably 5 times. First one, major one, I realized that I was standing on a beach, and I was like, oh wait, I'm not supposed to be on a beach. I'm dreaming right now. And then I look down and I feel my toes in the sand, but I don't see a body. So I'm like, okay, let's lucid dreaming 101. Let's make a body. I will myself to have a body, and from my toes up, my cells are constructing. My bone structure is like weaving together. I see the blood start to fill in my legs, and then it goes all the way up to my head. It feels really weird because it feels like I'm literally building my body second by second. And then I say to myself, okay, let's teach myself how to fly. And I think float, and then I float up. And I think fly, and then I fly higher. And it's very strange because it's like you're more awake than you are here. Everything around you is incredibly vivid, kind of solid, kind of not solid. Can't really explain it.
Wow. You're just like one sci-fi movie after the other.
Oh, you don't even know about the half of it. There was this one experience where I accidentally hypnotized my friend and his little siblings. I didn't want to do this. 100% didn't want to. It was like 3 a.m, and I was trying to go to sleep. And then my friend goes, Garin, I'm kind of bored. We should do something. And I was like, bro, I'm going to go to sleep. I was like, I can't do this. He's like, wait a minute. I'm getting ideas. I should write them down. I was like, okay, you write them down. And then he starts writing rapidly. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I look over at what he's writing. He's writing my exact train of thought. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this kid doing? He writes, what the hell is this kid doing? And I think, why is he writing that? And he writes, why is he writing that? I'm like, okay, he's just acting weird. And then I ask him, I'm like, hey, Mike, what are you doing? And he doesn't really look up. He's kind of just keeps writing. And then he's writing what I'm asking him. I'm like, okay, he's probably hypnotized right now. Let's just change that. And I said, stand up. He stands up. I'm like, oh, perfect. He is hypnotized. So I go over to his siblings and I'm like, hey, is he acting weird? And they look at me, they're like, no, he's not acting weird. Why? And then they stand up and then they all line up next to each other in the living room. And then, long story short, every thought, or my train of thought was spoken by all three of them. The logic part of my brain was my friend, the emotional part of my brain was his little sister, and the dictator was his little brother. And they lined up in the room and were speaking my thoughts back to me. And I was like, I'm just trying to go to sleep. Why are you people doing this to me?
By any chance, was Sid Doseman in attendance at this party?
Not Sid, no. Silo.
There you go.
Yeah. 100%. But then the next day I said you to the little brother, I said, you won't remember this one at all. And then I said to the sister, you will remember this. Next morning she comes over and she's like, what the hell happened last night? I was like, oh, so that was real. Wow. Different experience with hypnosis. I said to the kid, I said, hey, every single, I said, your electromagnetic frequency is synced with mine, thus you respond to my thoughts and emotions. And I'd think, stand up, the kid would stand up. It was weird, very weird. I don't like that because free will is the first distortion, and it's necessary.
That is a very true statement. Very important to always remember when doing this kind of stuff. That is a very bizarre. I mean, I have never heard of anything like that in like that kind of scenario. Obviously, I've heard of telepathy and reading other people's minds and all that kind of stuff, but in that kind of scenario, that's really new.
I
I'm
was freaking
very
out.
intrigued.
I was in the bathroom at
Yeah.
one point, and I heard I would tell them, you have your normal thought process back, and then they start chattering like how they normally do, and then they started yelling at each other, and I was like, okay, I can't bear to hear this, so I said, I'm at the other side of the house. I go, shh, and they all quiet down when they shouldn't even be able to hear me, and I shouldn't even be able to hear them.
I
And then
really want you to hypnotize Brian.
and then I say, sit down and be ready for when I
Impossible.
come back. And then they're all sitting there, and it's just weird. It was really
Wow.
weird.
Well, speaking of this idea of being on like your wavelength, talk about the brainwave states. Because I know that's something you're really interested in, and you've been talking a bit about on your videos. And to everyone who's listening, like go check out Garin's YouTube video, Garin the Hierophant.
Check out the Waves of Light conscious conference as well. I'm going to be a keynote speaker.
Yes.
So the brainwaves. We have beta, our normal alert state, probably how we are right now. Alpha is when we're listening to people give speeches or watching TV and different things like that. It's when it slows down a little bit, or when we're reading. It's when we're absorbing information but not as receptive as we could be. Theta is when we're in REM sleep. It's when we're in our very imaginative states. It's how we are between the age of 0 and 7. We're completely sponging information and programming it into our minds. Theta is the state you're in when you're in hypnosis. And then you have delta, which is dreamless sleep. That's where you're in rest and repair, and your parasympathetic nervous system gets to take over. The brainwave state that really matters, and it's really, really important to me, is gamma. Gamma is, so our normal state is between 20, I don't recall the number, but it's low 30s, low 20 hertz. Gamma is 40 to 100 hertz. Gamma is when we hear people talk about the higher mind, the heart mind, the intuition, the higher self, all those things that are speaking of something that is divine. Gamma to me is that divine state. When I'm in gamma, my mind is not at all active. I have it's like words are, it's like you transcend language essentially, and you don't think in words anymore. You just receive tons and tons of information, and then when you want to relate to somebody, you're speaking very rapid firely and you get it all out. It's pure and utter alignment and harmonization with you and your inner being, you and your soul, you and God, you and whatever you want to call it. It's opening a 100 and 100% connection channel. That is gamma. That is why brainwaves are important.
And how often do you find yourself in gamma?
Oh, those are the days where I feel like I'm a million times more alive than I am on most days. I love those days. It's probably a 1 to 10 ratio. I can induce gamma. Usually, the way that I do that is I just repeat to myself, "I love myself. I love myself. I love myself," times like 100, and it eventually invokes a state of gamma. But it's it's very strange. When I'm in that brainwave state, it feels like there's a beacon lit from within my head, and it's like the sun is. It's like my pineal gland is replaced by the sun, and I can just see. Let's just leave it at
That's a great image. I mean, the sun represents clarity, right? Full clarity in the tarot. So that makes a lot of sense. Bringing that into your pineal gland.
And to actually induce gamma, so easy way to do it is to just breathe deeper, and because when you breathe shallowly in the chest, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. You're reducing immunoglobulin, the chemical that regulates your immune system. It's increasing cortisol and all the adrenal gland stuff. And when you breathe deeply, gut breaths, stomach breaths, diaphragm breaths, you're enabling the parasympathetic nervous system, producing immunoglobulin, which is very healthy. And then if you, oh god, this is supposed to be how to activate gamma. Sorry, I have a lot of different stuff in my head. Gamma. So in order to in order to activate gamma within yourself, you have to change your breath. You have to change your thoughts and make yourself think in alignment with what you actually want. People a lot of the time they think, oh, I want to be more happy, and then they start complaining about why they're not happy. You have to be in utter unity with you and what you want to be. And then when you're in that state, it's kind of like you let go, and then you just, in letting go and surrendering, you just have this vast amount of information and energy come out of nowhere, where it's almost like it, not that it possesses you, but you're tapped in to something greater, and that thing that is greater is your spirit. That is gamma, I guess.
Yeah, I struggled with that idea of surrender for a long period of my life. Always feeling like I needed to be in control and control things, or I had to make things happen in order for them to exist, as opposed to allowing things in. And I think that can be sometimes a big block for some people. Like they trying too hard as opposed to just surrendering.
What's funny is no matter what we do, no matter if we surrender or if we don't surrender, we're still attracting, and we're still doing all of that. So when people say surrender, it's kind of like, at first when I think surrender, I think they mean just let go and not care, and that's not it either. It's more so just knowing and trusting that even if you don't have the concept of surrender, even if you don't have the idea of letting go, that no matter what you do, even if you're doing something that you consider wrong, even if you're doing something that doesn't feel right to you, no matter what, you're still manifesting the thing that you're choosing to manifest. It's never ending, never ending. So it's kind of just like a, a relentless faith, essentially, in in your spirit, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, in your wise 17 years, as you look at humanity right now and over the decade and a half that you've had here on the planet,
Oh my gosh.
what is your view or your understanding of the evolution of consciousness over the last 2 decades?
We have had a lot of technology suppressed, where the general public has been given certain technology and certain information to establish a certain base level of awareness that this day and age we have access to so much more information than we did before. The regular person, you'd stop on the sidewalk and you just ask them any question. 90% of the time they'll know the answer to the question you're asking, if it's not super astrophysicsy or something like that. But the evolution with the technology we have, with the amount of technology that we don't know is here, we're at the precipice of two different possibilities. One, where we merge with AI, and uh, I don't see becoming artificial as the way of awakening. I see it as a digression. Isn't that what happened with the Greys or something like that? But um, let's not talk about aliens right now because that gets people iffy. But the second option is us awakening that which we already have within us, and that's that which has been suppressed, that which has been contaminated, that which has been given toxins, that which has become a rock. The pineal gland literally becomes a rock after fluoride and other things like that. And our body is a technology, and we're slowly but surely awakening to that technology. Consciousness is a technology. Consciousness is expanding, evolving, allowing us to expand and evolve. And honestly, the evolution, all that's happening is something that has happened before and something that will continue to happen again. It's just us awakening and realizing self.
Wow, I'm looking at my phone and it says 222, 6, and 66%.
And 66 isn't the devil number. It's more so reconsider what
No.
you're thinking right now or something like that. I don't
Well,
know.
6 represents the union. It's a union number, union of masculine and feminine. It represents like that middle space between Mother Earth and Father Sky. So it's a beautiful number. I'm curious before we let you go, Garin. I'm curious. What are kids your age really talking about? Like when it comes to spiritual, like are like people like, I mean, obviously you're going to be attracting people to you that are
Trust me, not
having
as
these kind
many
of
as you think.
conversations.
I'm lonely.
Oh, are you okay? So you're feeling the loneliness?
Not necessarily lonely. More so, most 30-something-year-olds, 40-something-year-olds, 50-something-year-olds are just older kids. They're just grown-up versions of who they were in high school, and that's kind of how it is here in this generation. 90-something% of them, they want to drink, have sex, and pretend like they make money or something like that. It's not that spiritual, but when it does come to spirituality, it's like they already know. Like I have a friend that's 2 years younger than me, and he's one of the only people I could talk to without having to explain what I mean by every other different thing. Anything I tell him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I get that. I understand what you're saying. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah." It's for the ones that are connected, they're coming in already knowing. They already have that connection. They just have to awaken it within them. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just curious because obviously you're an anomaly, and
Mhm.
I mean a great anomaly. But I was curious,
You know,
because hey, people who spend more time around you eventually are going to awaken to some degree.
all my friends that are closer friends, I've always had a tight knit group of friends. Any friends that I have that I had for the past 2 years or so, every single one of them are aware of all these things, and multiple of them are spiritual in their own sense. And it's not that spirituality is um, a certain path; it's for everybody, and whatever it is that they're doing. It's more so that only a few
Mm.
are like that. But I wanted to tie something else in. Are you familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality test?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm an INFJ and a Pisces, and INFJs are 1% of all males on the planet, and Hitler and Martin Luther King Jr. were INFJs, and I think it's funny to see the duality of possibility with INFJs, and then they also being overdeveloped intuition, and then having Pisces, which is also intuition, and then you have me.
And then there's you.
Thrown into the mix of it all.
Yep.
So, are you saying that when you had somehow accidentally put your friends into hypnosis, that the little guy who was the dictator, he was channeling Hitler in you?
Not at all. I was just standing there, and then they lined up in front of me, and then they started speaking my thoughts back to me, and I was a little bit confused at the time, wanting just to go to sleep. But Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear from you if you any sort of words of motivation, inspiration that you'd like to leave the audience with, a certain message that you feel is important for people to hear at this time.
In these coming times, you'll experience much accelerating division, accelerating issues. You will also experience an acceleration of adding value, an acceleration of fruits, an acceleration of yielding rewards and results. Don't believe and trust everything that you see on the outside. Really look inside and be your own fountain of knowledge, because there's nothing that anybody on the outside, any person, teacher, place, thing, and nothing will ever give you as accurate as information as you within.
Love it. Totally on board with that message.
I'll take it.
I
Yeah.
love y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Well, Garin, tell our audience where they can find you, and also tell them the details about the Waves of Light conference if they want to get down into Florida in the next 2 weeks.
So if you want to come down to Florida in the next 2 weeks, the 17th through 19th in Sarasota, nice sunny Sarasota, there's going to be a nice Waves of Light conference that we're going to have, where we're going to be speaking about many different topics with many different people of many different backgrounds. It's going to be a transcendental and transformational weekend, to say the least. So if you want to check that out, go to Waves of Light on Facebook, or I believe it's wavesoflight.com. Is it wavesoflight.com?
Wavesoflight.org, I believe.
Wavesoflight.org. And to find me, I have a YouTube channel, like you had said previously, Garin the Hierophant, on YouTube. Or if you can't find it there, just type in Garin Zina on Facebook. You should be able to find, or Garin the Hierophant on Facebook. You should be able to find it there. That's about it. Just want to say thank you once again.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, it's been very enlightening and really fun. I love hearing from the younger generations. I think it's really cool, and you're well ahead of your time, Garin.
For a while, I gave up on my generation because I thought we'd all be retards, but we're slowly but surely starting to show our true colors.
No, that's not a thing.
Oh man, I think what you're considered the Generation Z.
Yep, Gen Z.
Yeah, I think the Gen Zs are gonna fix what the millennials have. The millennials and every other generation behind them have left in the wake. So you guys will be fine.
Fun fact. I was once told that this is my 101,276th life, and I hope that I can assist many in this life.
Wow,
Is that
that's
only
a lot
on Earth?
Only on Earth, yeah. Only on this sphere.
Oh, okay.
You're an expert down here on Earth, and that's
You-
awesome.
Yeah.
I am not.
No wonder the knowledge just spills right out of you.
Yep, too much sometimes, but
Well, thanks, Garin, for coming on. And say hi to your mom, Michelle. We love her. She's awesome. And she's clearly done a great job. Well, thank you, Garin, for coming on the show. And to our audience, please check out Garin's YouTube. And if you're interested in seeing him speak live in person, you'll know where to find him down in Sarasota in 2 weeks down in Florida. Thanks, Garin, for coming on.
Thank you all for joining our show. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting us. If you have any questions you would like answered on the show, or any guests you would like to hear on our show, please email that information to us at info@enlightenup.us. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're interested in contacting Nicole or myself for some coaching or any of the other services we provide, you can find out more about Nicole at inflexibleme.com, and my website is lisaloveslove.com. Thank you again for joining us and supporting our show, and we will be back with you all next week.